Hi, everyone. I am Jolie Teveno. I'm the Executive Director of the Japan-America Society of Alabama, and we are here today for a Hinamatsuri Girls' Day virtual celebration. We've got our PowerPoint here run by our intern this semester, Kirsten Burdett. You may have seen some of his Facebook posts on our JASA Facebook page leading up to Hinamatsuri, and we'll be referencing some of those as we go through the presentation. But Kirsten, if you could go ahead and start us off with the next slide. Okay, so if you haven't heard of us, the Japan-America Society of Alabama before, we're a nonprofit organization. We're dedicated to promoting Japanese culture and business across Alabama. We do lots of cultural events like this, and we've been virtual now for almost a year, trying to keep up with the times and make sure that all of our attendees to our events are safe and socially distanced, but hopefully we can have some more in-person events for everybody soon. Coming up, we'll have our virtual Cherry Blossom Festival, which is usually our largest event of the year. That'll be later this month on March 27th, Saturday, and the content will be up for the following month. So you can enjoy any of our virtual performances, demonstrations, and interact with some of our performers and volunteers as well on our website, japanalabama.com. And you can also use that link to ask us any questions you might have about this presentation. We've got all of our contact information there as well. So for today, we'll be discussing Hinamatsuri. I'll give you a little bit of information, history and overview of the holiday, Girls' Day, and then we'll have a live video of all of our hina dolls and their special roles in the hinadan, the 7-tiered display of Hinamatsuri. Each of them have very special tradition and history that go along with them, so we'll talk about that. And then we'll come back to our PowerPoint presentation for some talk about the traditional meals and treats associated with the holiday. After that, we'll have some open time for questions and answers, so feel free to type your any questions that you might have throughout the presentation into our Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. All right, so Hinamatsuri, the doll festival. Hina is a doll or young female. Matsuri, festival. And then hinaningyou is what we call the dolls, ningyou being doll. And this doll stand, as you can see in the picture, is a tiered display of all of these dolls. It's called a dankazari. Usually it's a 7-tiered display. Today we have all of our dolls spread out on one plane. Given the COVID situation and small setup, we don't have a full display, but we do have a few pictures showing what a traditional display should look like. So this festival actually dates back over 1,000 years to the Heian period, and each of the dolls and their affixments have significance to a Heian period wedding. The Heian period was from 794 to 1185 AD. So a lot of the clothing and garb and accessories that they have with them are representative of the Heian period. Different regions definitely have different customs for Hinamatsuri, but we've followed suit with the Kanto region, central Japan, what is most common there. But you can find all sorts of different Hinamatsuri customs across the country of Japan. But the main goal, the main trend following through all of those customs is that these dolls are set up every March, mid-February to March, and they're believed to protect all of the young girls in the family. So the idea is the dolls will carry their troubles for them and ward off any misfortune. So it's very common for families to have a set of these dolls, maybe not a full 7-tiered set, but the top tier, the 2 main dolls. Most families will place at least those out for their girls throughout the month of February into March. And then after March 3rd, all of them are packed up and put away safely for the next year. So as I mentioned, families will celebrate big or small with a full 7-tiered display or just a small 2-doll display. But these are pictures from the festival in Katsura, Chiba. Chiba Prefecture is outside of Tokyo to the east. This is their Hinamatsuri festival, and they display over 30,000 dolls every year. And each one of these is unique. They'll have unique wardrobe and accessories that go with them that represent the emperor and empress and their court of dolls. And then you can see here on the bottom right, we have a picture of some origami hinamatsuri, just folded paper doll display. So there are lots of different ways to celebrate. You don't have to have a full 30,000 set of dolls or not even a full 7-tier set. You can certainly display your own origami doll handicrafts and celebrate Hinamatsuri in your own home. Okay, so now for our dolls, if you'll give us just a moment, we're going to turn off our PowerPoint screen share and transition over to our doll display. Okay. Okay, so this is the top tier, most important, the Dairi Bina, the imperial dolls. So over here on the right is our Meibina, our Ohina-sama, as she's also called, and she is the empress. And she is usually holding a fan, a sensu. And then over here, our Obina, our Odairi-sama, he is the emperor, and he's holding a shaku, a ritual baton. Now these aren't usually the any specific emperor or empress of Japan, but they represent the positions. So these lampstands are called bonbori, and on top are the lanterns, the hibukuro. They're usually decorated with cherry blossoms or peach blossoms to represent the spring. As you can see, the empress is wearing her crown here, and both of them have space for their little shoes. Next is our second tier. This is the Sanin Kanjo. They serve drinks to the dolls. The emperor and the empress, as you can see, they have little serving equipment. So one of them has a little bowl, the other has a ladle. Usually these are 3 women and they look very similar with similar hairstyles. Now this behind them is a folding screen called a byobu. Usually it's just on the first tier behind the emperor and empress, and they're next to each other, but for our display we've spread them out just a little bit. But this is usually on the second tier. And then the third tier is of 5 musicians. So you can see 3 drummers, 1 flautist, and then 1 singer in the middle. Some sets have 7 to 10 musicians, and the larger set of the 30,000 dolls we saw probably has many, many more. But usually they have more drummers and then 1 single lead singer who's here in the middle. And usually there are 5 males, but sometimes, and in more recent years, we've had females in the musician court as well. So this is the 4th tier, our daijin, they're ministers. The minister of the left is usually older and the right is younger. That is stage left and stage right respectively, so there might be backwards for the viewer. but they are holding bows and arrows to defend and advise the emperor and empress. And usually on this tier, to the right, there is a mandarin orange tree, and to the left, there's a cherry blossom tree. And we have those back here on the second tier. And these come in many different varieties and styles, but these are ours, our orange and cherry blossom trees. And then behind them, you can see these stands for what we call Hishimochi. And we'll talk a little bit more about Hishimochi when we get to talking about Japanese food associated with Hinamatsuri. This here is the 5th tier of helpers and protectors for the emperor and empress. So as you can see, they have swords, and they're all dressed in a very similar fashion. Now the 6th and 7th tiers are usually reserved for furniture. The 6th tier is furniture that will be in the palace with the emperor and empress. And then the 7th tier is for any other furniture that might come with them. And some of these sets are very large, very comprehensive, but this is some of the furniture that we have here. So as you can see, there's a full dish set and some dressing furniture as well. So this is our full display. As I mentioned, this is usually set up in a tier, but we have showcased some of it for you here today. I'll have one last shot of our emperor and empress, our main dolls. Then we'll go ahead and switch back to our PowerPoint presentation and talk a little bit about the food associated with Hinamatsuri. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed our little presentation about the dolls. So first, for traditional meals and things you might be able to cook at home to celebrate Hinamatsuri, we have Chirashi sushi, scattered sushi. So however you like your sushi, whether you like to eat raw fish or not, you can probably find a way to make this dish in a way that you'll enjoy. It's usually a plate or bowl of sushi rice with a variety of toppings on top. This can be seafood or vegetables or sliced egg. The sushi rice can be plain, so you can make this with white rice and rice vinegar, or you can season it with a special vegetable mix. And these might be available at your Asian markets. They might sell a pre-cooked mix that are added to the rice that you've made. Often they include lotus root, bamboo shoots, kampyo, which is a dried gourd, and then shiitake mushroom. But you can also make any of these vegetables fresh or cooked and then add them to the top of your chirashi sushi. Other toppings include boiled prawns or shrimp, diced sashimi salmon, raw usually. You can cook shiitake mushrooms, and then ikura, salmon roll, is a popular one. You can see the little orange salmon eggs in this picture we have here, along with kinshi tamago, which is shredded egg crepe. It's usually a sweet, very thin cooked egg that's folded and then cut into strips. And then lotus root on top, and shredded nori seaweed is the green seaweed you see on top there. And then snow peas, blanched, are often a common added topping. So we've got a recipe there at the bottom of the screen if you want to take a screenshot or look at justonecookbook.com. They have some wonderful, easy to make at home Japanese recipes for you. So that's where this picture is from, and you might be able to recreate something that looks just like that if you'd like. Okay, and our next recipe, we have hishimochi. So as I mentioned, those that sit next to the daimyo, the advisors, on the tiered hina display are hishimochi, rice cakes. They're made of 3 colors, the pink or red, the white, and the green. They're often presented as kind of an offering to the Hinamatsuri dolls. The ones we have in our display are made of wood, so we didn't cook those. But it's symbolic for the dolls and is presented to them to help them with promoting the health and well-being of the girls that they're supposed to protect. The 3 colors are usually made with, the pink layer is jasmine or plum blossom, sometimes peach blossoms as well. And then the white layer traditionally was made with water chestnuts, and then mugwort in the green layer. And all of these ingredients are said to promote health and good constitution. But nowadays, it's more common to see rice flour, sugar, and water together with something to change the color a little bit. So the flavor is mostly the same between all 3 layers, but the green layer with matcha powder, green tea, has a little bit more of a green tea flavor. And then the white layer is just plain rice cake, which is that mix of rice flour, sugar, and water. And then the pink layer, you can add just a little bit of red food coloring and get that pink layer. And then you would stack all 3 layers on top and then cut them into a diamond shape, which is supposed to also promote health and fertility. And then at the end, you dust them with potato starch powder. If you've ever made mochi before, it can be very sticky and stick to your fingers. So it's helpful to have that powder handy so you can dust your hands to kind of mold the mochi and then dust it over the top so you can pick it up easily. The last one we have is hamaguri ushio jiru. Jiru or shiru is soup. This is clear clam soup, but it's not just water. The broth is very tasty. It's made with konbu, which is dried kelp. That's a kind of dashi or soup stock that's very popular in Japanese cuisine. It can be made from konbu, the kelp, or katsuobushi, which is dried bonito flakes. It's a type of fish. And then shiitake, dried mushrooms as well. But this one, this recipe from also just one cookbook, calls for konbu stock mixed with a little bit of sake or rice wine, and then salt, and then mitsuba or Japanese parsley as a garnish. I think you could probably use regular parsley as well if you're unable to find any mitsuba at your local Asian market. The key to this recipe is the clams, manila clams. I think the recipe calls for about a pound of them. There is some prep work that goes into degridding the clams. You can, I think, buy them pre-prepared, but having them really fresh is the key in having a really tasty clam soup. And once you have prepared the clams, it should be a pretty quick and easy recipe to make. I think the website says it's just about 15 minutes. So something quick to fix together that's really tasty and nutritious for Hinamatsuri. So snacks and sweets associated with Hinamatsuri, there are several. Hina-arare are the sugared rice puff snacks. So it's kind of like a grilled or popped rice cake. You can find these at your local Asian markets around Hinamatsuri time as well. I know if you're in Birmingham, Hometown Market sells them in really big bags. And then if you're up in Huntsville, I think there are some local Asian markets up there that sell them as well. Ichigodaifuku, strawberry mochi, is a strawberry inside of the rice cake with red bean paste. And red bean might not sound sweet to some of you who are familiar with Japanese cuisine, but it is a very sweet snack, and it's used in a lot of wagashi, or Japanese savory snacks, or sweet snacks. So this is our little picture of the strawberry mochi, strawberry rice cake, and you can buy them pre-made, or you can learn how to make your own at home as well. There's lots of recipes. I believe we've shared a couple to our Facebook page as well. And then last but not least is sakura mochi. It's a pink rice cake, or mochi, with red bean paste in the middle, and it's wrapped in a pickled cherry leaf, and it's supposed to be really salty, the outside, so you have that really nice sweet salty combo, and it's perfect aesthetically for springtime and is very fitting for Hinamatsuri and cherry blossom season as well. These are popular during cherry blossom festivals too. So that was our Hinamatsuri presentation, and now we'd like to have an open discussion and Q&A from our audience. So please, if you had any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type in your questions now and they'll come up in our discussion. I'll give everyone a few moments to do that. Is it hard to make mochi at home? Okay, I'll go ahead and answer this one live. Yes, so I think it depends on your experience with baking, but you don't have to put anything in the oven or prep a lot. It's just kind of the physical activity of getting that water to rice flour ratio and then heating it up and stirring it to where it makes a sticky paste. And then once it feels textured enough, you let it cool down, and once it's the right texture, you kind of mold it like a dough, and then you powder it so it's easy to touch with your fingers. It's definitely a fun activity. It's a little bit messy, but I think if you look at some of the recipes we've shared online, you'll find that it's pretty simple, even though there might be a big cleanup afterward. Okay, is there a way to begin or add to a Hinamatsuri collection? So most of our dolls that we have here are from Japan. So they were passed down to us from some families who had them for generations. And usually that's the way I've heard that most families do it. They're passed down through the girls to their daughters as well. But I think if you're looking to start your own collection, you can look at some of the crafts that you might be able to use to make your own little Hinamatsuri dolls. If you want to celebrate and want to use the origami hina dolls, that's a pretty good way to start. But if you're looking for some traditional style hina dolls, then you might be able to reach out to some friends in the Japanese community and see if you might be able to find someone who is giving them away or wants to pass them down to some more families with young girls. You can go ahead and send us an email too if you're interested in maybe purchasing some, and we can help you find a nice website online or a way to deliver them from Japan too. The next question is, do you eat the pickled cherry leaf? I didn't know leaves were edible. Yes, so some leaves are edible. And I've never really found a taste for it, but it's a good balance of flavor, I think. Okay. Wasn't mochi originally made by pounding rice? Yes, so I think it's still made that way. If you go to Japan, you'll see maybe big barrels of mochi being made, and then there's a mallet that you use to hit it. If you're going to make it in your own kitchen, then you can just pound it with your hands or knead it together. But you can pound it into a paste. And now it's easy to make with rice flour and then just kind of hydrate that. But yes, you can take cooked rice and then pound it into that paste and then add some kind of flour to get the right consistency. Okay, we have a question about a link to instructions for making origami dolls. I believe there is a YouTube video that we've linked for this purpose on our Facebook page, but we'd be happy to share that after the fact as well. So when we share this recording, I'll make a note that we can send a link for those origami dolls as well. Are there any food offerings that need to be placed with the dolls? Yes, so the Hishimochi that we mentioned is a pretty common offering to the dolls, but I've seen hina-arare, the rice snacks, placed in front of the dangazari as well. But I think the Hishimochi is the most common. Does every family in Japan participate in Hinamatsuri? I'm not sure if every family does. I think maybe to some extent, but mostly families with young girls until the age of about 10 years old, I think is when they'll participate in Hinamatsuri. What's more common is Children's Day on May 5th. That's for boys and girls, and they have their own set of traditions for young boys and girls as well. But Hinamatsuri is very commonly celebrated by families with young girls, and regardless of whether you celebrate in your own home, you can kind of take advantage of the holiday and go out to some of these larger Hinamatsuri festivals, like the one in Chiba that we showed earlier with the 30,000 dolls. Okay. What is the best store in Birmingham for Japanese food, in your opinion? There's one that's attached to, I think it's Red Pearl off of 31. My personal favorite, just because it's close to me and my office and the JASA office, is Hometown Market, which is attached to Mr. Chen's, and that's, I think, near Green Springs. They have a really wide selection, and they bring in seasonal goods too. That's where I was able to find some hina-arare as well. Can you eat Hinamatsuri snacks even if it's not Hinamatsuri day? The snacks looked delicious. Yes, they do look good. I think mostly these meals are for springtime. They're usually associated with Hinamatsuri, but they're not just reserved for the one day. I think usually it's eaten leading up to Hinamatsuri, but I think now modern families might stretch it out a little bit throughout March as well. So if you want the next few days to gather some Hinamatsuri snacks and try them for yourself, I'm sure you wouldn't be breaking tradition at all. I think the most specific to Hinamatsuri of all of these is definitely the Hishimochi. But mochi can be enjoyed. The flavor is kind of the same as any other styles of mochi and can be enjoyed year-round. Okay. Yes, the dolls are usually passed down through families. I would say that's generally correct. And then the families might add on as the years go on. So first, when the tradition was started, the dolls were made out of straw and cloth, and they were floated downriver. And that's kind of a symbolic way of floating away the troubles of the young girls, and the dolls will take them with them. And as kind of the royal family and higher up officials in Japan caught on to the trend and the idea, they were made into fancier dolls and more elaborate displays and kept inside the home for decorations. And then as the years went on, as the child would get older, she would kind of accumulate a much larger court of dolls and furniture and things like that. So I think as you pass them down through the generations, then each family can add on a little bit and it can be an heirloom. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments for us? Oh, I see the chat as well. Let me take a look at that. Okay, well, thank you all very much. We tried to keep it a little short and sweet for everybody, but I hope that you all enjoyed our presentation on Hinamatsuri and Hina dolls, and that you have some time this afternoon to explore some of the activities and snacks that we've shown and enjoy your Girls' Day for March 3rd. If you do have any questions that come up or need any assistance when you're at home making your own Hinamatsuri snacks, feel free to send us an email. All of our contact information is available at japanalabama.com. Thanks so much to everyone who joined us today, and I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your Hinamatsuri.